Celebrities whose parents were killed. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's father, James Jordan, was killed in 1993. He was lethally shot in an apparent carjacking, in which the killer or killers took two NBA championship rings that Michael had given as a gift. In 1996, two men, Daniel Andre Green and Larry Martin Demery, were arrested and found guilty of Jordan Sr.'s murder. Sean Lennon. John Lennon, founder of the Beatles and father of musician Sean Lennon, was shot to death at his home on December 8, 1980 by Mark David Chapman. Chapman waited from mid-morning in front of Lennon's home that day, handed Lennon an album to autograph, and after getting the autograph, he waited for Lennon to turn and walk away before shooting him 5 times in the back. Mark David Chapman pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 20 years to life. Dylan McDermott. In 1967, when Dylan McDermott was 5 years old, his mother Diane was shot to death in what police deemed an accident. After McDermott called the police with questions about his mother's death, the case was reopened in 2011. Police filed murder charges against John Spanza, Diane's boyfriend at the time of her death. Spanza had ties to organized crime and was found dead in the trunk of his car in 1972. Kelsey Grammer. If anyone has had the kind of childhood that involved significant tragedy, few can compare to the childhood of Kelsey Grammer. His parents divorced when he was only 2 years old. After the divorce, Kelsey's mother brought him and his sister Karen back to New Jersey to be raised by mom and granddad. When Grammer was only 11, his granddad had died. Only 2 years later, a mentally ill man named Arthur Niles had set his father's car on fire for reasons unknown. When Grammer's father came out to find out what was going on, he was shot twice and murdered. His sister Karen was raped and murdered when she was 18 by 2 men who were either mentally ill or on drugs. Charlize Theron. In 1991, Charlize Theron's mother Gerda shot and killed Charlie's father Charles. According to Gerda's testimony, Charles drunkenly threatened to kill her and Charlize. The actress's mother wasn't prosecuted as the Attorney General determined that Gerda had shot Charles in defense of her daughter and herself. Jennifer Hudson. Oscar-winning Dreamgirls actress and singer Jennifer Hudson suffered a horrific tragedy when her mother, brother, and 7-year-old nephew were murdered by her estranged brother-in-law, William Balfour. Balfour went into shooting rage at the family's Chicago home, thinking that his wife Julia Hudson was dating another man. He was convicted of the killings and sentenced to 3 life sentences. James Ellroy. In 1958, when he was 10 years old, crime fiction author James Ellroy's mother Geneva Ellroy was raped and murdered. Her body was discovered with one of her stockings around her neck. The slaying remains unsolved to this day. Melvin Mora. Melvin Mora was a player for several Major League Baseball teams. His longest stint came with the Baltimore Orioles. His father was murdered in Venezuela in a case of mistaken identity. Mora was 6 years old at the time. Father and son were walking in front of their home when a stranger comes up to the car, points a gun, and kills his father. The result was the family plunged into poverty and Mora was passed around from relative to relative to have a place to stay. Patrick Duffy. Mary and Terence Duffy, the parents of actor Patrick Duffy, were killed in 1986 during an armed robbery of their Montana bar. The killers, Kenneth Miller and Sean Wantz, were teenagers at the time. They were convicted of the murders and sentenced to 75 years in prison. Miller was released in 2007 on parole. Omarosa Manigault. The lack of available information on the death of the father of Omarosa Manigault is puzzling. Omarosa admits that her father was murdered in Youngstown, Ohio in 1988 when she was 7 years old. Other than that, not much public information is available. Tragedy, her brother Jack was shot to death in 2011. Dave Navarro. In 1983, Dave Navarro's mother Constance was shot to death in her West LA apartment. Her friend Sue Jory was also killed. Constance's ex-boyfriend, John Riccardi, was arrested in 1991 thanks in part to America's Most Wanted. Sean Diddy Combs. Interestingly, Combs' father was an associate of convicted drug dealer Frank Lucas, portrayed in the movie of American Gangster. When Diddy was just 3 years old, his father was found shot dead in his car. Malcolm X. In 1931, Malcolm's ex's father, Reverend Earl Little, was found dead on the streetcar tracks near his home in East Lansing, Michigan. 2 weeks prior to that, the house of his father was burned down. The police ruled Reverend Little's death an accident, though the family suspected it was the work of white supremacists. As a result, his mother suffered an emotional breakdown and was committed to a mental institution. The family was split up to live elsewhere.